Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Cunningham. I decided to um, pop on today to share. Um, the reason is, I actually was planning on just disconnecting from social media today. However, today is such an important day, not only from a practical standpoint, with consideration of the duality of Indigenous Peoples Day as well as Columbus Day, but also from a spiritual standpoint. Literally, the Holy Spirit, you know, um, keeps pressing on me with consideration of sharing. So I'm sharing. I am a very spiritual person. At the same time, I really believe in the balance of making sure that when I share something regarding life, that there's practical strategy, skills that someone can implement in their everyday life, so that we don't feel like this spirituality is just this esoteric sort of concept. However, it's something that's very grounding that you can utilize in your everyday life in order to implement a better life, an enhanced life, a better quality of life, the best life that you could have. And so today there's such a pull spiritually, because we're looking at the celebration of a group of people who resided here in the United States on this land from the origins of time of people living on this land, the indigenous people, the Native American people. And then yet there's a celebration of Columbus Day, which is apparently the discovery of the United States of America, or North America. And what's interesting is I literally have ancestry, which means blood, running through my veins of both ancestries, indigenous people and the people connected to Columbus, Christopher Columbus. And so the realities of the story are, there's a group of people whom their land was stripped from them. They were horribly and horrifically harmed, killed, skinned. When we celebrate Thanksgiving, the reality is that this is a group of people whose culture was degraded, people whom stole natural resources and brought disease. And yet Columbus is given the flag of America is America because I have found it, as if it wasn't already inhabited. And yet that story for so many years was the truth that was placed within the American history books. And at the same time, people say that history doesn't matter. However, from a biblical standpoint and from just a historical standpoint, with consideration of looking at our educational system, the Bible clearly shares lineage, which is history, and chronicles. And the entirety of the Bible is based on historical events, yet is so relevant now and today and for the future. And there are history books that exist telling us the stories from the past of our forefathers. And we have classes specifically within the educational system that teach us about the history of the United States as well as the history of the world, the globe, literally. Why? Because our history informs us of what was, what we've created up to this point, whether it's positive or negative, and hopefully with our now, we can continue what works and or have an opportunity to change the narrative, change the script from the past to our now. But then the Bible also tells us that there's nothing new under the sun, which means that the human condition in many ways will always repeat itself. Even if we look at fashion, fashion in many ways rotates. For anyone who's spiritual, believes in eternity, depending on what your belief is. And eternity is not now and the future. Eternity is a convergence of time between the past, the present, and the future. The infinity sign is never ending. There's a convergence of time at some point and a repetition with consideration of what once was, what is, and what can occur within the future. What we can do is focus on what we're able to do now. But from my perspective is with consideration of what has already occurred, because why do we attempt something that didn't work previously? Or potentially we can attempt something that didn't work previously because it's relevant for now, even if it wasn't relevant then. There are some people whom are ahead of time, who are, really admired and celebrated now, but during their time were not. So then do we not consider history? The reality is we utilize today E equals MC squared. But when Einstein was alive, they thought he was a horrible student and that the man was crazy. Yet today we see him as brilliant. So his contribution from the past is relevant now. Now, with consideration of the specifics of the duality of the indigenous people and Columbus and his ancestors and who exist today, my question is, how can we heal now? Because the reality is that trauma occurred for the indigenous people. Now, I'm thankful that there was some form of reparation for the indigenous people. However, that was after, again, working to dehumanize them, to strip them of their language, to strip them of all of their resource that has to do with what was passed on through generations, through their ancestry, how they utilized the land in order to heal themselves and to cultivate their own people. And there are people whom are able to now go to casinos, and I'm one of those people. I like Vegas. I like going to different casinos. Yes, I'm a Christian, but I do, I definitely sit at the slots and at the tables in support of the indigenous people. But then also, if you would like, I'd recommend going to some of their museums. But then behind the scenes, the indigenous people are still working through intergenerational trauma, because trauma is passed on not only through narratives, but also biologically in our genomes. Just like the people whom endured historically the Holocaust, Jewish people are more likely to express some angst now because of what occurred during World War II. So there are people celebrating at the casinos, yet there are Native Americans who are still suffering with trauma. And we are also able to provide support because we know it's effective with consideration of trauma. Now, at the same time, there are people who are celebrating Columbus Day because they're like, yes, our people discovered America. And at the same time, what are we going to do with where we are now? The reason why I say this is because we are at a pivotal moment in our socio-political climate where there are people whom are able to join with those who will celebrate hand-in-hand diversity, indigenous people as well as immigrants, and those whom are trying to snuff out cultures. Which one are you? My hope is that we will learn from what happened in our past and choose peace and cross the lines, hold hands, pray for those whom are here now and for our future, for the sake of our future, and because we're aware of our past. Can we heal? Can we honor our past? Can we do something that is going to be effective now for the sake of the future of the United States and the globe? Thank you for your time.